when is it okay to hit back?
Ooh, babe, too soon.
When is it okay to hit back? What goes through your mind when you hear that question?
So when I hear that question, many people in the United States just watched an award show.
Beyond the United States.
Beyond the United States, but it was filmed here in California. And it was just a few days ago. And that is what my head goes to when you ask that question. When is it okay to hit back? A famous actor a comedian was hosting the award show and, said something which most comedians will poke fun at different actors, and they did that. And the husband of the actor that they poked fun at got really upset and went up on stage and slapped the comedian.
In a weird slap.
I know. You didn't think it was
a weird
real.
Slap. Yeah, because I saw the way he hit him, and I was like, who slaps like that?
Well, you're a martial artist, so, I mean, it's common even watching a movie.
Should I teach people how to slap someone appropriate right now?
No, you should not. You should not. That's not
just
even
let
funny.
you know, when you need to throw a strike, let's say you're in a situation where you're defending yourself, okay? You want to follow through all the way. You don't want to lean back and slap someone. You want to follow all the way.
Well, he's an actor,
through.
baby. He's not a martial artist, so let's just give him some grace with his form.
Yes.
But getting back to what happened.
Have you ever slapped someone like that?
I have never laid a hand on anybody. No.
Yeah, that's good.
And I've actually never received any sort of slap or punch by the grace of God, and I'd like to keep it that way. But no, I've never engaged in anything like that. Unlike you, who is a black belt in Tong Sudo.
And you slap me all the time.
Yes. What?
No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, you're a black belt. Don't want any part of that.
You've never slapped me before, but you've threatened to slap me.
I've probably said that.
You've said, I will slap you sideways.
I've never said that.
I will slap you silly.
I've never said that.
Well, it's an empty threat. Joking about this, you get into territory where you're like, wait a minute, like, don't joke about this, because there's definitely women and men victims of domestic violence. Absolutely. And I imagine women and men, but I could imagine seeing that and being like, dude, are we just going to let some guy slap someone and just make that okay? Like, hasn't our culture, hasn't our society, like progressed? Aren't we the kind of people that say, hey, violence is not okay, like in any form?
Yeah.
Which I think is probably what's going to happen with this conversation. I know this just happened a day ago, but it's probably going to happen with this conversation, like what constitutes violence or not. So, yeah.
Right. Is it okay to hit back was the question, not is it okay to hit?
Right.
I think everyone has an opinion, and our opinions are formed by our worldview, by how we've been raised and conditioned. And so, I'm sure just like you, I think there's three different responses here. There's some people that think like, well, he was defending his wife. It's okay. It was honorable. I've heard that side of it.
Did part of you, when you saw him stand up for his wife in any way, be like, I would want justice to do that for me?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And why not?
Because I personally don't have this like gaping hole of like, I need people to stand up for me.
Though there are people that I'm sure have been victimized and have nobody standing up for them.
Correct.
Yeah.
I haven't fortunately been a victim of domestic violence, and so I don't have that in me where I feel like people haven't stood up for me, so I need someone to do that.
Right.
I would actually probably, thinking through it, if that were me and someone said something to me, I would be mortified if he reacted that way, because
what would you have wanted me to do?
I think nothing, kind of, shook it off, maybe not smiled. That would probably be like the extent of like, dude, not cool.
Okay.
But there would be nothing in me that's like, go fight that guy or go hit that guy, go get that person.
A lot of guys fantasize. Like, I remember I had a friend, dude, in college. This is such a terrible story. He's never gonna listen to this. He told me that he planned a situation where he had one of his friends at school come and like try to attack a girl at school, and then he jumped in and tried to rescue her, like damsel in distress. And he told me that story, and I was like, what on earth are you talking about? And I think there's guys out there in maybe some sort of like reptilian primal consciousness there where they're like, this is how I show what it means to be a man, to come to the rescue of a woman. Every woman needs someone to come to the rescue. That's just not the case with everything. I think
right.
Well,
I think too, I think in our culture, even if you look at Disney movies, there is, every girl wants to be rescued is kind of the narrative we've grown up listening to. And I don't know if it's necessarily a healthy narrative.
Right.
But even more so than like our opinion. So there's some people that like it was honorable. Right. And that's their opinion.
A lot of Disney movies don't even do that anymore.
Right. Like, they've kind of steered away from that. Yes.
Yeah. Progress, like conscious, like collective conscious evolution.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that side. And then there's another side that would say violence, it's not okay.
Yeah. Which is interesting because, I'm old school, right? And my parents violently hit me with a belt as a kid, right? I don't hold that against them. I personally don't need to do that with my kids because you raised them so well. But just shout out to my wife for doing 90% of the lifting in that department. But
I love that you said my kids, not our kids.
Yeah. Sorry, our kids. Our kids. Well, sometimes you say your kids.
Well, when they're acting, when they're misbehaving, I will say your
kid,
your children.
Yeah. So I said that to Logan. I was like, "Your dog just pooped in the house."
I do call it your dog. We just got a puppy, and he's a puppy, and so
he will be our next guest on the podcast.
No, he will not.
Where was I going now?
We were saying that there's people that, violence is not okay.
I was saying as a dude, 10 years ago, you would have asked me, was that violence? And I'm like, no, that dude got what, you talk about another man's wife, you get slapped in the face and that's over. Because I remember, with guys, it's a little bit, I don't know if it's still this way, but like, we used to get in fist fights all the time when we were kids.
Yeah.
And then we would just like squash the beef. That's what we called it. Squash the beef.
It's almost weird. Like you had a fight club Bible study.
Right.
Right. Where you guys would train in martial arts and read the Bible together. And there was like this camaraderie. Everyone loved it. It blew up. It was a big old thing. And I had a bunch of the wives or different females going like, Maria, we need to do a women's fight club. And I was like, no. I'm like, if you ever hit me, I won't ever want to see you again.
Right.
And I think I'm not classifying like everyone feels the same way, but I know as for myself, I can only speak for myself. If someone were to hit me, like that would stay with me.
Yeah.
As opposed to guys that can like beat each other up and then all of a sudden they're hugging and I'm like, what is, this is so
I was 15
weird.
years old. My friends jumped me.
Yeah.
I was 15 years old. One of my buddies mouthed off to me. We were doing a homework assignment at his house. And I couldn't take it anymore. And we went outside to his driveway and we threw down in the driveway, right? My parents rolled up right when we were like throwing blows. And like we pretended like we weren't doing anything. And I got in the car, but it was like, dude, Friday after school, we'll see you there. Like actually, right? So like that day on Friday or whatever, I'm like wearing like loose fitting clothes. I'm like warming up, We show up to the after school fight. And this little private school boy didn't bring enough friends to the fight.
Didn't know.
And I didn't realize it. So they wound up jumping me and stomping me in, and it wasn't very fun.
Did you forgive them after? Like, was it fine?
So after they stomped me in, right? I mean, I got one good punch in the guy.
Did you have your black belt at this time?
I did. And also, yeah. Anyways, so it wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? It wasn't like violent, like where I like had broken ribs or anything like that. It was just like his friends versus my friends, and I didn't bring enough friends. And anyways, this is the 90s. So afterward, we looked at each other.
Yard school rumble, something like that.
Yeah. Afterward, me and my buddy were like, want to go play Sega Dreamcast? And we walked to his house and played video games after. And like, that's kind of a weird thing about guys. Like, I have a feeling those two celebrities, those guys, because it was guy on guy, I bet you that in some weird way, I'm not condoning violence, but I have seen guys throw blows and still be friends afterward.
Right.
And it doesn't, of course, if it's gender opposite, there's but I've seen guys just squash the beef. Now, I don't know if things are still that way. Right. I just know that as a kid, we used to get in fights all the time.
Right.
So,
well, I also think too, I mean, depending on your background, just like we were saying, your upbringing, like you grew up doing martial arts.
Yeah.
And our boys have done martial arts, and our oldest is a black belt now.
Right.
And I remember when he was training when he was young, I was like, the sparring was really hard for me to watch. He was a kid. It was hard for him. And you said, like, Maria, like, he needs to know that he can take a punch. And I was like,
for sure.
But does he, So I just think our environments really shape how we feel and what we do. But where I want to get to, depending on whatever your opinion is, your opinion may be that, like, there's just been too much light on this scenario. You know what I mean? That there's been too much press or too much attention. But
what would you tell your kids?
Well, let's talk about that because last night at dinner, we sat around the table and we actually told our kids about what had happened.
I knew he was talking about it at school.
Yeah, I'm sure someone talked about it at school. So we sat them all down as we ate our dinner and we began to ask questions about what had happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think our oldest is turning 12, and then we have a 7-year-old son as well, and then we have a 6-year-old daughter. Did I get those ages right?
You did. Good job.
And I kind of asked them how each one of them felt when I retold the story to them. And do you remember what our middle son said?
No, I just remember being surprised by it. What did he say?
He's the sweetest kid in the world.
Sweetest kid in the world.
The most non-violent,
Yeah, that guy would take like 5 punches before he would ever like fight back.
Yeah. But he did say, if someone did that to my mom, I would knock him out. And he's only a blue belt. But, but I'm like, whoa, hello.
Right. And he's so nonviolent. Like he's actually been bullied at school. He's been kicked and hit before and won't even tell us because that's how non-confrontational he is.
Right.
So there was something in like his growing little manhood that was like innate in him that was like, you can't do that to my mom or my sister. Like
I think there is some sort of manhood something in there because when I wrestle his older brother, he comes to his rescue. You know what I mean? Like he definitely, that's when he kind of responds.
Right.
And it's almost like something switches in him when it's like, you can do that to me, but if you do that to somebody like my mom, I'm going to stand up for her.
Right.
And I mean, was there anything that felt honorable about that situation between those celebrities or?
I think the standing up part is.
Yeah.
Right? Like everyone's got a different opinion. Where I want us to get to is how we're supposed to respond as followers of Jesus. Mm-hmm. Like, what does the Bible say about this? How do we navigate these things?
Yeah.
And Jesus stood up for people that couldn't stand up for themselves.
Right.
And I think that's so important. I think it's how you do it that's also very important. Right. But I think there is something that when someone is, marginalized and pushed away or is a victim, like there's something in us of something righteous that like rises up and says like, not on my watch. I'm not going to let that happen.
Okay. But here's the question. Standing up for somebody who can't stand up for themselves, we all understand that that's the gospel.
Right.
Jesus stood up for us
right.
when we couldn't stand up for ourselves.
Right.
He lived the life that we couldn't live. Mm-hmm. He hung on a cross for us so we didn't have to do it. Yeah. He stands before the Father. He answers like that is the gospel. The good news is that somebody's here to rescue you.
Yeah.
Right. The scripture says, what is that scripture? The Son of Man didn't come to be served, but to serve and to become a ransom for many. Right. So there is that, but how you do that, the question then gets into the conversation